So we can agree that the offense did some really good things over in Ireland. We also can probably agree that a lot of those good things originated in keeping your top two tight ends off the field. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers presented by FanDuel. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates that I hope you'll check out. Steelers were back in something that would have resembled a practice yesterday on the South Side. They flew back from Dublin pretty much right after the game Sunday. I didn't fly back till yesterday, but they had on the schedule that they would practice yesterday and then do so again today. And then they're going to be gonzo from tomorrow through Sunday. Like, not just out of sight to us. They're not going to be around. They're going on vacations or wherever. Players tend to do that in the NFL with their bye weeks. I don't know how eager you are to go flying around right after you just did a trip to the other side of the planet. But with the practice came the first opportunity to hook up with Pat Freiermuth. Not that he had done anything wrong. He was available to some Irish reporters, but by the time they were done with him, he was on his way out the door and whatever. It was the first time he addressed not playing very much. Sunday seeing only 15 offensive snaps. The other tight end in the mix, of course, Jonnu Smith, had even fewer. He had 13 snaps. The offense as a whole had 53. So you're talking about less than a third of all the time that the Steelers were out there breaking the huddle. Those two guys weren't in there. They were replaced, of course, by another tight end, Darnell Washington, who logged all but 5 snaps in the game, 48 for him. And Spencer Anderson, who became a de facto 6th offensive lineman, although that's formally a tight end and he has to get declared and all that other stuff. But Spence was out there for 19 snaps. So Spence also played more than either of those tight ends. And of course, it ended up showing in the other numbers. Smith would get targeted only 3 times, 2 catches in there for 6 yards. Freiermuth wasn't targeted at all. Now, I'm not going to go looking this up, but I don't recall a game that Freiermuth's ever played in Pittsburgh, or for that matter, probably in his life, going back to Penn State and high school and everything else, where he didn't get targeted once. But as I found out over in Ireland, and as Freiermuth confirmed yesterday, this was a known thing. This was part of the plan. And as Mike Tomlin made clear over in Ireland, this was specific to this opponent. Here's what Freiermuth had to say about it yesterday, with a big smile on his face, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was part of the game plan. I mean, we ran the ball really well, and Darnell had a fantastic game, and we won the game. So I was super pumped for Darnell and Spence. Spence came in, played great, and it was a great running game.
So there it is. They're set, right? They've figured it out. They're going to go with the 6 offensive linemen, and they're going to have Darnell. No, they're not going to do that. And I'm not guessing when I share that with you. They're going to find a way to get Freiermuth and Smith onto the field. They're going to find a way to get them back into the passing mix. But to do that, and there were hints of this as well yesterday, they're both just going to have to block up to par. You shouldn't need to take an NFL tight end off the field and replace that tight end with a 6th offensive lineman to do, the job of the tight end. Should Spence be a better blocker than Freiermuth or Smith? Yeah, that's fair to say. It's what Spence does for a living. It's what he's done for his entire life. Should it be to the extreme that everybody, Pat Meyer, Arthur Smith, Tomlin, get onto the same page that against that Minnesota defense, this is the way to go? Or should they just be able to say to Freiermuth or Smith, hey, just ramp it up, your blocking hasn't been good enough. And it hasn't been from either guy. So why Minnesota? That's probably the first question that needs to be asked. Well, I asked it. Not going to share with you who answered it, but the answer was essentially that the Steelers were aware of Brian Flores' tendency to dial up these big exotic blitzes. He'll do it on third down. He'll even do it on second down. And from there, if the Steelers had Spence on the one side and Darnell on the other, by virtue of their mere existence, they were going to be deterrents to Minnesota sending in people off the edges. Good stuff, right? Good plan. Good execution. I don't think anybody would argue that both Spence and Darnell did the job. Darnell had probably his best game in the NFL. But what do you do with it? Do you just go through the bye week and then line them up the same way against Cleveland? The Browns are the Browns, but they do have a defense. It's not the same style as Minnesota's, at least not exactly, but Jim Schwartz is a defensive coordinator of some repute himself, and he has, figuratively speaking, manhandled the Steelers coaches at times. A lot of that's been through being, fast and physical and aggressive. So what do you do? What do you do in that matchup? Do you say, well, we really need to get the tight ends all involved again? No, you don't. No, you don't. All you need to do that day is to win that game. You heard Freiermuth just say it right now. We won. We knew what the plan was. We went out there and executed. We won. I find this fascinating, especially since, in all likelihood, nobody's going to know anything until that first offensive series at Acrisure Stadium. That's fun. A little lack of predictability here for your stodgy old Pittsburgh Steelers. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Football season's finally here. Time to check out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Think the Steelers are headed to the Super Bowl? Lock in your bets today. Whatever your game, FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials so you can join in on all the action. Hey guys, if you're planning to see a Steelers game, use the Game Time app to get your tickets. You can snag new ticket deals before anyone if you set it into your app alerts. The app is easy to use. No surprise fees at checkout. You can see your seat view before buying, and you're getting legit tickets delivered on time. If you're not much of a planner, you can get last-minute deals on tickets right up to the start of the event. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app and enter the code DK Steelers into your app profile to get $20 off your first purchase.
Today's J1Q comes from Steve Jovanovich, who says, is it any coincidence that since Derek Harmon got out onto the field, Steelers defense is harder to run on? No, that is not a coincidence. Now, that's not to suggest that Harmon was at some superstar level over in Dublin. He wasn't. Assisted tackle, quarterback hit, pass defensed in 35 snaps. But what I've seen from Harmon, and this was something I mentioned to Chris as we were walking toward Croke Park, so it was before the game, that I'd felt that Harmon has really just kind of stabilized things. You're not wondering who's here, who's there, why is Isaiah Loudermilk out here, what's gone wrong with Keanu Benton, I don't even know who this guy is. Should you have 2 down linemen? Should you have 3? Should the linebackers be doing more behind them? What you're getting from Harmon to date is just a nice, even keel. He's been good. And that's all this team needed out of the defensive line at the start. They just needed to be good. They needed to shed, of course. They also needed to finish plays. They needed to make tackles. They needed to make sure that their linebackers in some cases, were able to make the plays. Now, if you want to really get into some numbers related to this stuff, we can do it that way. And I can remind everyone that Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen had 8 solo tackles each, twice as many as anybody else. Wilson ended up credited with 13 total tackles, Queen with 11. That's just tremendous. That's old school linebackering. I'll also add that Deshaun Elliott being back, it's just a different defense with him. It just is. 4 solo tackles, 2 assists. And then when you get into TFLs, tackles for losses, it's those same guys. Queen had 3 of those. Wilson had 2. Elliott had 1. They were in the backfield. They were making things happen. A splash, yeah. I'm always going to consider TFL to be a splash to some extent. And let's throw into that TJ Watt and Nick Herbig were able to eat off the edges. And all of this, incidentally, without Cam Hayward registering anything. Zeros across the board. So what did it? What made it happen? Well, the correct answer is probably not something that's some big red neon headline. It's just that they've gotten better. They've gotten more used to each other. Nobody wants to hear the word communication anymore, but let's not pretend it isn't a thing. Queen told me in Dublin that he felt like the calls that he was making were really resonating with the people around him. He'd look them in the eyes, make sure they knew what was about to happen. And he said it. He felt that was the first time that had occurred. Wilson told me that he felt the game just really simplified for the defense. Some of the strategies and schematics gave way to just playing football, just going and tackling the football. So combination of things, everything I just mentioned, a couple of individuals really stepped up. I neglected to praise yet again the game that Benton had. 4 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. And remember all those missed tackle numbers that I'd been rattling off through the first 3 weeks? Take a wild guess at how many the Steelers missed in Dublin. Ready? 2. 1, 2. It also does help when people do what they're supposed to do. I appreciate the question. I appreciate all of the messages and so forth that were sent our way on the DK Pittsburgh Sports app while we were in Ireland. Some of those kindly commenting on the coverage that Chris Halleck and I were able to offer from over there. If you want to become a member of our app, there's 2 things you need to do. One is to download the app. That part is free. Just go to your Apple or Android store, type in DK Pittsburgh Sports into your search, and boom, it'll be right there at the top. After you do that, email me directly, dk@dkpittsburghsports.com. I will respond to you same day with a discount offer to get our premium level. That's the good level. That's the one with no ads. You have access to comments. You can communicate directly with the reporters who cover the Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates. All kinds of good stuff. You'll love it. Email me for the discount and we'll hook you up. We'll also be getting together later today, 4 p.m. Pittsburgh time here in the good place again with a double shot of Steelers. Thanks so much for listening to this show and for your support. It means everything to us.